Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Super excited for this panel. It's my third time in Singapore, and I look forward to coming back later for Toka 2049 in the fall. And so basically, I wanted to start off by doing some quick introductions. Alexis Johnson, co-founder and CEO of Lightnode Ventures, which is a Web3 venture studio and advisory firm. AI is a very big vertical focus of ours.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nick. I'm building Assisterr, which is a network of community-owned small language models. We incentivize the community to contribute the data, knowledge, experience, expertise to domain-specific models and get fair rewards.
Hey, everyone. I'm Michael, co-founder and CEO of Zero-G. Zero-G is building the fastest modular AI chain. And we sit at the middle of the data infrastructure stack for AI. We essentially build an ultra-fast data availability and decentralized storage layer so that you can store any type of data and then also have the data bandwidth to actually do things like on-chain model training in the future.
Hey, my name is Ozzy. I'm the founder of Zoe Labs. We're building an operating system to enable human-to-agent coordination. It's a consumer-facing app with a decentralized protocol. And our goal is to enable a consumer app that's sort of like Web3 WeChat with agents as the core mini apps.
Awesome. So my first question is, why decentralized AI? What problems currently exist when it comes to centralized AI?
I can start. From my perspective, we had this, we don't want to end up in the world where this early slogan for early days from Google, don't be evil, would not end up, not bring us to a new era when there would be one or two or five companies who will not only control the whole domain and the whole AI space, but also they would be in a shadow mode, changing our behavior, affecting our decision in both politics, consumer direction, into personal direction. And to not allow this happen, we have an amazing technology, blockchains, that can help us to avoid this model biasness. Or if the model would be still biased, you still can track who, how, and when affected this model. So she push you, or this model, it push you to make X or Z or Y decision. So I think that's a part with not the models are biased, but the people who train these models are biased. And if you want to get better AI, to have this transparency layers that blockchain can give, it's something that decentralized AI is for our team, at least.
Yeah, I actually spoke on stage earlier about this, but I don't see a future in societal AI use cases without blockchain. This is because if you have AI agents starting to run societal level processes, whether it's governance or administrative processes or logistics systems, how can you verify that all of these things actually happened? Usually you have to trust some centralized entity to say hey, we fully aligned this model and we can basically make sure that all this stuff gets done. Versus in a decentralized context, you don't have to trust anybody. You have a chain of custody. You can see exactly where the data came from, how it was kind of stored, how it was labeled, what kind of version of the model you're getting, what the weights are in that particular model, what the decisions in real time are that are being made by the model. So all of that, you have that full chain of custody and transparency and insight, and then you can even create economic conditions. If the model has a kind of a scope of being able to work on financial transactions, you can create incentives and disincentives for the model to behave in appropriate ways. And so that's really the promise of fully on-chain AI. And we're particularly excited at Zero-G.ai to see that vision come to fruition.
Yeah, all of you guys are AI agents, and every day you're being trained by an algorithm called the newsfeed. And if you look at what's happening, if you look at the incentive structure, they're commoditizing your attention and aligning you in a way to keep you on the feed and then to somehow use this attention to create a monetary value for these sort of large companies. We need to ensure that basically the models and agents and LLMs that we use are user-owned, sovereign, and there's a provenance of where the data and how this was trained. the other main thing that I really like to point out is AI is infinite information and an abundance of intelligence. Crypto is embedded digital scarcity. And on a long-term basis, the internet will most likely be flooded with infinite amounts of information, and your ability to perceive reality and truth will be heavily deteriorated. The only savior we have is cryptography, and basically having a provenance of where this data came from, what is the value of this data based on who else has interacted with it, and all the other sort of novel things that we can do to ensure we can see and track the provenance of some of these models.
So my next question is, what role does artificial intelligence play in consumer-facing applications? Starting with you, Ozzy.
Yeah, I think you've seen a massive boom in sort of these consumer-facing applications that essentially cater to specific niches within the spectrum of applications that people are building these days. One of the most important things I'd like to point out with consumer-facing apps, specifically if you look at sort of the computing revolution with AWS Azure, the value accrual happened on the things building on top of this cloud infra. Same thing with the mobile era. There was a platform to build on top of, and the value accrual, a lot of it did go to the applications going towards it. And I think if you assume basically LLMs are a platform, I fully expect basically the attention layer, attention is all you need, the paper, but the attention layer will accumulate a large amount of the value. More importantly, I think just how apps were for mobile, agents are for LLMs. And I think that's the other main thing I'd like to point out is with ChatGPT, what a lot of people don't realize is all these users are actually doing RLHF for ChatGPT. So those like and dislike buttons are actually training these AI agents. And I think on a long-term basis, consumer applications will really try and aggregate a lot of these points to basically align the model more aligned towards what the consumer wants.
I like that clever reference. I certainly hope we have the audience attention as we're speaking. So definitely nice to be here. But I think we have a complete way of totally revisiting what user experience in a digital age means with agents. And so consumer experiences can totally be changed. You can have digital companions, you can have digital assistants, you can have AI agents on a more societal level that are doing things for you like trash collection or legal paperwork. It doesn't matter. But if you've ever watched The Avengers, for example, and seen the scene of Tony Stark with Jarvis, like that's what the future can be like. You don't need like actual interfaces anymore. Your iPad may actually be obsolete in the future because you can just have a voice-based conversation. Hey, like I want to have a hotel room that costs X amount in this particular area of the city that's close to like a Whole Foods, and please book this for me. Like very different experience from like, okay, I'm going to do like 30 minutes of research and try to find the best place. So I'm particularly excited about that side of consumer application, just making our lives like really easy and creating an abundance of time for us.
I think every time when we discover some, like from product perspective, I used to build a lot of products in my background as a product manager. And what we try to do on a startup and a product level is all the time to find the way how we can change the consumer behavior and how we can affect it dramatically, not, like 10%, not 5% improvement, but like something really significant, 10x, 20x or more. And if we try to think about like historical moments, like STEM engine, electric cars, like iPhones, whatever else, like big technology shifts that happen, it's changed the way how society works, is how we work, how we think about us as a part of society, how we think about our efficiency. And this latest shift with the AI first application, it's something that boosting us and giving us much bigger opportunity by acting as kind of medium that scale our efficiency, scale our ability to interact with people, with world, get information, get things done, and so on. So that's why from a Assisterr perspective, from a team perspective, we think that each application is going to be AI first application. And this application market from AI first application or model application or agent application it's going to be much bigger than App Store combined, like App Store and Google Cloud at this moment of time. And there is already research that's proven that this prediction going to happen. It's just a question of maybe 4 years, maybe 5, maybe 10. And the question is, like, do we want, like, what we want, like, how we can imagine this world? Because the most, like, we have two different options. Like, first, it's like centralized and all this AI that's gonna be black box and somehow works. Or we can create alternative with maybe 10, 20, 30% of market share, where we definitely can understand and can clearly see what we inputted, what we want to get that output, and like what is the people around who play this game with you, who have and share common beliefs in this type of future. But AI first applications, the change in behavior, it's something that's going to be dramatically redesign all society in the nearest future.
And all of you have touched on this topic lightly, but how specifically will AI agents enhance consumer-facing applications and really accelerate the growth of consumer-facing applications?
I think one thing that I actually talked to Mike about this recently, right before this talk, but I really do think the client-server model is slowly going to really go away and move towards an edge-based model, where a lot of the computation will actually happen on your device. A lot of people don't know this, but the iPhone actually has a neural engine that's optimized for tensor processing, and it's only used 5% right now. So there's this whole latent compute available to every human that has an iPhone, and I think a lot of new apps will actually tap into the latent compute and basically open up pretty novel sort of mechanisms. One thing if you look at all of history, and all great foundational technologies reduced coordination cost. And I think AI is one of the most powerful things, primarily given that it turns every human into a 150 IQ individual. And I actually take this even much further than most. I actually think humans are about to have real-time evolution happen. If you look at Homo sapiens, we outcompeted Neanderthals because we had the neocortex. The neocortex enabled language and coordination. And I believe now we are evolving into neo-sapiens. We have an exocortex, a mind outside of our mind, augmenting our abilities, and we have global trustless coordination using blockchains. So I think the convergence of both of these will give rise to the next digital renaissance. And I think you'll see a lot of novel consumer-facing sort of experiments that really weren't even possible in the future.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this type of future as well. And I think a lot of the coordination will actually be agent to agent and not human to agent, just from a volume perspective, because we're very limited. We can kind of in space and time process one thing at a time, but agents are not limited to that. They can have millions of conversations at the same time. Like if you've seen the movie Her, you can, there's a clear example of that. And so how do we get kind of this physical body that we have, where we have a limited scope of information processing, into that age? And so we're really curious if what the human kind of brain and device interfaces will look like in the future, if it's maybe even thought-based, or if it'll be invasive or non-invasive. And that's maybe too far in the future. Who knows? 10 to 20 years maybe, but it'll be really exciting to get all this abundance of time back and lots of agents just working for us.
It's very interesting that like as soon as we start thinking about some robots or AI in the future, initially everyone was imagining that it's going to be humanoids. So, like it should have like 2 hands, 2 legs, like just as we are. But in fact, they can be much more efficient just as we design it right now. And how I see this process is basically going to happen not as much on a consumer side. It's like happening, but to address each specific use case, you need additional data quality, data accuracy, and there's like a whole bunch of problems or challenges which need to be solved if you really want to serve each specific domains on a high level. However, we're going to have a lot of agents or like kind of hidden way where you can interact with IoT devices, and there would be a lot of smart devices all around us that can be interacted and like reach out with our personal assistant, like order food or do some ordering some coffee as soon as you're moving just from the coffee shop that you allow. And like there was endless amount of use cases that we're not thinking right now, but it's just became a daily routine for us in the nearest future. To make it possible, we need to solve one important thing. It's to ensure the data that is operated and used by each specific application agent, it's high quality, precise, and address specific use case. To make it possible, we're gonna need incentivize this data sharing. Initially, human to human, human to model, but later on, we can incentivize data sharing from machines, from as agents, from different devices, because as soon as they tracked, they use the human forward this conference place, they can also share, they also can provide some insights, they can, interact with air condition system or whatever else. And there's so many interesting intersection how they can collaborate and how they can interact between each other. And to make this interaction valuable and interesting, there would be definitely some currency. And this currency, most likely it's a crypto, because there's no way that it's going to be used dollars, euros, whatever else. But with crypto, you can design this interaction and like transaction layer between any agent, between any smart device that's going to be all around us.
So you're saying that our humanoid robots shouldn't handle cash?
Yeah, most likely no.
So next question, in your opinion, what regions geographically do you think are best suited to more rapidly adopt consumer AI technology, and why?
Okay.
What regions?
Sorry?
What regions in the world?
I mean, it's kind of hard to answer without knowing everything that's going on all the time. I mean, at this point, it's impossible as a human being to keep up with all the AI research. You basically have to read a paper a second or something like that. So I think there's a lot of development across the world that is happening. But if you see at where things like OpenAI came from in North America, I can see there's a lot of development that's happening there. So I'd expect more innovation to come out of kind of areas like San Francisco and the Bay Area that will be adopted very quickly. But I in general, everywhere I've been recently, whether it's in the Middle East or here in Asia or Europe, there's a big openness to implementing AI processes, because the vision is very clear that the automation and the cost savings that AI brings are a very clear use case. Just the ability to make our job significantly easier. And as some of my professors from Stanford even say, that maybe in 2 generations, we don't have to work for a living anymore. I mean, that's a promise of AI, and who wouldn't want that in their own lives? So I see most regions I've been to, myself from an experience perspective, are interested in implementing it, whether it's at a city level, personal level. But I would say the innovation centers in the world will be the fastest to adopt initially.
Adding on, I do agree. I think North America has been a pretty large benefactor right now recently, especially given the sort of virality of ChatGPT. I'm sure everyone in this room, the first moment you've used ChatGPT, the first time you ever interact with it, like you experienced magic. That truly wasn't magically even for me. I think China has been really producing a lot of interesting sort of papers around sort of novel open source tech as well. But I do want to say, for the first time, we have a piece of technology that almost speaks every language. And that to me is still mind-blowing. The fact that I can give this technology to any human, some random person in Africa, someone in Latin America, and if they spoke in their native language, they would most likely, the AI would be able to translate and get a response. And in that vein, I think one sort of field that I'm really excited about in sort of AI, a lot of people really focused on LLMs, large language models. I think SLMs, which Nick is actually doing some very interesting things with, are going to be I think a majority of use cases for consumers that aren't doing like insane sort of research, I think SLMs will sort of satiate that demand. And if you've not heard of it or have not seen this, Microsoft recently released a model about a month ago called PHI-3. It's a 1.7 billion parameter model. It can run on your phone and any Android 10 device without the internet and use the CPU to resolve inference requests. That to me is absolutely insane. The fact that now any human on earth can just download this piece of software, and have access to a super intelligent being. Let me give you a very interesting scenario that I'd use it for. Imagine if how many of you know how to start a fire? Like probably not many of you. Imagine if you're like in just like a life or death scenario and you just need some form of knowledge to be able to escape this. You now have a local first AI that could essentially really help you out in really, I think, doomsday scenarios. And I think one thing that I'm really happy with, I think if you look back in time, there were events in human history that caused massive knowledge to be lost, sort of like the burning of Library of Alexandria and sort of these other events. And I think now that we have these sort of primitives for large language models, SLMs, I think humanity will be very robust to sort of adversarial future doomsday scenarios.
I can add here that two use cases that I am super bullish about and I'm super excited. Like first, the use case which we start as a team initially, it's about developer support and automation of developer work. And we already have more than 20 models specifically designed and trained on the data from different Web3 protocols like Solana, Near, Optimism, and other guys. And it works. It helps significantly save a lot of time, a lot of highly expensive time, which highly reasonable. And the same with GitHub, the same with the Copilot that they launch. It's like huge success in the market. A lot of developers are using and relying on this tool. And it's happening right now, so it's a consumer face and it's like on the edge of everything what exists. Second direction, I think that we are slowly moving from these chatbot interfaces to agent interfaces or agent like paradigm of thinking. And with this agent direction, there is one single use case that can change like everything what is going on around. And I think that is AI research agents. So as soon as we would design strong enough AI research agents that would be scalable, so we can just copy paste him or put the right task, right context, like you need to do these things, you need to use these techniques, you need to do a lot of other things. And if this agent will succeed and it would be just pushing the boundaries of our AI research, that's kind of things that can dramatically change everything and we would be in different world. I hope so.
And which vertical within consumer AI technology will become the most dominant in the coming years? Will it be productivity? Will it be entertainment? Will it be something else? Curious to hear your opinion.
That's if you look at it's between productivity and entertainment. I think a lot of like people are using it for augmenting their ability to accumulate massive amounts of information and find signal. And then there's a whole other camp that are using it for solving their loneliness or their companionship. And that's a more entertainment sort of focused utility. But, you know, like Michael said, if on a long-term trajectory as sort of AI really ramps up and we start entering this sort of post-care society, I really do think a lot of it will be more focused towards entertainment than productivity. But yeah, we're in the very early innings of this, but it's between those two that I think right now.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think entertainment and education, I mean, how cool is it and how long will it take until your iPhone devices have the processing power to have a conversation or, learn from Mozart, how to like interpret a piece of music? How to, learn from Einstein about relativity. We will basically have all of the best of human knowledge at our fingertips. And so that's super exciting for me from an education standpoint. And then similarly on the entertainment standpoint, at some point, all the content can be created for you. So why watch a Disney movie that's been designed in a specific way if that content with the same level of quality can be designed to your preferences, to your liking? And it's the same. It's not the same for your neighbor. It's not the same for your friends. And that's super cool. And then you can imagine whole games that are just designed for you, that whole experience, because we have that ability through generative AI. And so it's going to be a very interesting world.
Yeah, I agree on the last on the last thesis about that we're gonna be very soon in hyper-personalized experience environment due to AI applications that would be surround us. But also to make it possible, we need to have this personalized identity that is somehow represent us and somehow connected to these different interfaces all around us. Except that productivity is a huge direction. I just checked in parallel the top application, Gen AI powered application. It's like most of them are about productivity, and one more it's about very specific niche where people trying to get some models or create some fun with them. So I think entertainment direction is gonna be there for sure, but except that, of course, we have a lot of productivity stuff that is pushed by big players, because like Microsoft, OpenAI, and other companies, they also trying to see where is the monetization of all of this model. It's not only like they're doing research, they're pushing the research direction, but except that they need to productize, they need to commercialize these products.
So my next question is specifically for Michael. How does zero gravity allow decentralized AI consumer applications to thrive and scale, especially with the architecture design?
Yeah, we particularly care about a lot of on-chain design. And so specifically for on-chain use cases, if you want to run something in a blockchain setting, you have a very limited data pipeline right now. So if you take Ethereum, the data throughput is only in about 80 kilobytes per second or so. Like, what kind of games can you run with that type of throughput? Like, it's a very secure, computational, decentralized computer, but not particularly good for having high-performance applications. And so what we enable is to radically increase that data pipeline so that there's no difference between kind of the things you can build on a centralized setting versus a decentralized setting. So if you take like Fortnite, for example, from Epic Games, we enable Epic Games to build that fully on-chain with the same infrastructure costs or less. And so that's what we care about, to remove the barriers between the centralized and decentralized world, so that the only barrier really is physical limitations. Like if you have a lot of servers across the world, there's still the speed of light you have to take into account from a just communication standpoint. And so those are the barriers that we remove so that we can have a fully on-chain future, so that if you want to be the owner of all of your data, if you want to be the owner of all of your knowledge, that you can be. So that you don't have to trust another centralized entity to do something with your data. So for example, if your data is being used in a specific AI model, why shouldn't you be compensated for that? Like right now, somebody else is benefiting from it. If you are posting something on Reddit, that data invariably will end up in a model somewhere. They will use you as training data. So why can't you benefit from it? So that's a future that an on-chain future enables.
And so what are some of the key differences and parallels between, let's say, the zero gravity stack and Celestia?
Yes, not everybody may be familiar with data availability and what it does, but essentially if you have a modular blockchain stack, there's generally 4 pieces that belong to that. So you've got an execution layer, you have a consensus layer where you basically determine what is the truth of the network. Then there's a data availability layer where you have to then say, okay, we know what the truth is, but other people have to verify that truth. A block has been created, but if I can't verify that truth, then I don't believe the truth. And then finally, there's a settlement layer where you say, okay, the transaction is now finalized. And so data availability is that particular piece where something like 90% of transaction costs live. And so if you take that out in a blockchain environment and you increase the data pipeline, you can radically decrease the transaction costs. So on Ethereum, if you've ever used it, every time you do a transaction, it's in the many dollars per transaction, sometimes in the tens, sometimes the hundreds of dollars just for a single transaction. And if you have something like an on-chain game that's doing, million plus transactions a second, first of all, it can't be supported. And second of all, it'll be way too expensive from an infrastructure cost standpoint. And so data availability really solves that particular issue. And now what other designs do is they basically say like, okay, I have this particular block and I'm going to make it available to all parts of my network simultaneously. So they're sending the data across the entire network many times. Super inefficient, not horizontally scalable because you're limited by the network speed of an individual node. And so what we've done, our key insight is we need to segment data into a data publishing and into a data storage lane. And so data comes in like a data blob, we erasure code it into smaller chunks, and then that gets stored on the storage network. And then the only data gets sent back and forth between the consensus network is validity proofs or specific proofs that the data is available. So very small bits of data. So you don't have this like broadcast bottleneck. And so that creates very high throughput because now it's horizontally scalable. Any node that gets added to the network adds to the overall bandwidth. And so each individual node on our network does about 10 megabytes per second versus Celestia is about a megabyte per second for the entire network. And then if you have 5,000 nodes, you get to 50 gigabytes per second. And then at that point, the consensus network becomes a bottleneck. And then we've also figured out how to horizontally scale consensus networks so you get infinite data availability. And so then the use cases are infinite as well, because if you have infinite data throughput, you can build an infinite number of applications that are high performance. And so that's really the major difference.
Got it. And so for all panelists, what is missing from the current consumer application experience that crypto and AI will provide and solve for?
I think one sort of piece of the infra that I've been pretty focused on and really digging into is this notion of multi-agent coordination. And if you look at it right now, when you query ChatGPT, it's a single expert. If you know about Mistral has this architecture called MOE, mixture of experts. So it's one model, there's a gating function. When you query it, there's actually 4 models inside, and it goes to the respective model most aligned towards it. And my theory is the next evolution of this is what I call a network of experts, where basically there's millions of models. There's Chinese ones, there's Indian ones, there's ones different on different cultures, different languages, different expertise. And if you assume this sort of network topology of millions of experts, how does one coordinate and enable coordination, communication between these sort of subsets of models? I think what's really unique is blockchains are one of the most powerful coordination technologies, and this one strong sort of thesis I have is that you need a parallel environment to enable these sort of multi-agent coordination systems. So I'll give you an example of two. I'll give you one example, but I'll tell you 2 papers that you can read up on this. 2 of the most popular multi-agent frameworks. One is called Meta GPT, META GPT. Really cool primitive, tons of stars on GitHub. The other one is called Reflection, except it's XION. Those are 2 really good sort of papers and implementations you can look at. What's really cool about with Meta GPT, it basically instantiates a director agent, a product manager, a QA tester, a software engineer, and the director basically is the boss, and it coordinates all of these agents. And in an environment where each agent is its own entity, it has agency, it would have an identity on chain, it would receive payments, it would have its own wallet, and it would have characteristics that showcase that it is its own entity, and it is interacting with other entities. And I think crypto is uniquely sort of in a place to enable sort of this mass coordination of these agents. And I'm a very big sort of, I'm really excited to see basically novel interactions with agents with microtransactions. So for example, if I wanted to query Michael's agent, I might pay him like 3 cents because it's just one query. I'm just querying him once. But Nick's might say my agent costs 10 cents per query, and he can have his own sort of pricing based on that. And basically per query, I would pay him 10 cents. So I think that's something that I'm really sort of excited about, this notion of multi-agent coordination.
Yeah, 100%. Super excited about it. I saw there's a number of papers around trying different experiments around like setting up a town with different agents. How do they interact with each other? Super fun. I'll just kind of harp on this point of I really want to see on-chain AI happen so that when you have smart cities in the future and a lot of these systems are run by smart agents, let's say trash control or manufacturing type of systems, that we have full visibility into what went into the model, what went into the agent, how's the agent acting, are they in a box where they can't easily cheat? Can they just show you some centralized database entries that they've faked and created a bunch of pictures through some image generation and basically said like, hey, I've done all this work, but in fact nothing happened. We then need to have certain governance processes like economic incentives or disincentives like slashing mechanisms so that those agents are completely aligned with what we expect a smart city to do, so that we can live in this state of abundance without fear that agents will go rogue in a like centralized system because they figured out how to crack into centralized database entries and then actually trick the companies that produce the agents or the models in the first place. And so on-chain AI is a great solution for that.
I think it's amazing actually, Solzit just shared, because I was like, we are thinking and chatting about this all the time. But what also I can add here is that design and alignment element between agents or AI models and between humans in the loop, because we're still there and I hope we're going to be here for quite a long time there. That's something which is very interesting, because in the long term, we already see with the papers, with experiments, that some agents, some AI models, they can be tricky, especially if you put their wrong stimulus, they can hide some information or not discovered fully this information. So to design the system where incentives are aligned between both agents, AI models, and also human, and which are beneficial for both sides in some way, that's some kind of a direction that we also think and do our research. And one of the elements that also we research and how to incentivize whoever contribute data, whoever improves the model quality or agent quality, how to put him, this person, on the top of this beneficial chain. And we're doing it by, actually we can track all embeddings from each person, and then we can trace which embeddings was actually used when someone is querying, using this agent or using this model for his purposes. And in that way, even if you contribute less than 1% of the data, but this data is high quality, highly relevant, and needed for many use cases, you can expect that this model would be rewarding you accordingly as the most important contributor. So this element of fair reward distribution in collaboration with model and human alignment, it's two directions that is quite interesting and challenging to work on.
Well, one other thing I want to add on consumer facing is that in the future, even now actually, your AI agent will not be called ChatGPT or Siri. It'll be named by you. You're going to choose which model. You're going to choose to give whatever properties you want. You'll give it a name and even a voice that you like, that you want. Everything is going to be hyper sort of personalized. And I'm quite excited for that as well.
So my next question is for you, Ozzy. As it pertains to Zoe, would you say Zoe is basically like the Web3 version of character AI? And when it comes to onboarding users at scale, what problems do you foresee in being able to onboard users compared to, let's say, a Web2 AI application?
Yeah, I think Web3 character AI is a good sort of example, but one thing with character AI is that it's only user to agent. With us, it's user to user, user to agent, agent to agent, and multi-agent, which is much more novel and a little more difficult. And in terms of sort of the roadblocks, I think we try and do a really good job of basically abstracting away all notions of crypto. So when you actually use my app, unless you know Solana, Ethereum, and you know Connect Wallet, you wouldn't really realize it's a crypto app. I really do want to do a good job of abstracting away this notion so that users can use it without sort of realizing there's crypto attached to it. And our end vision with our consumer-facing app is Web3 WeChat, where agents are the mini apps, And I have this whole like a whole blog I'm writing very soon, which I call Web 4.0. I'm going to steal it. It's the agentic web. Read, write, own, and now act with data. And I really do fully expect just how the atomic unit of the internet were websites, and websites were a very deterministic UI, and that's where you would read, write. I think agents are the next atomic unit of the internet, and that's going to be a probabilistic UI. The agent will transform itself based on your preferences, what you want, and you will read, write, and also interact using these agents. And my one thing that we're very close to building out is actual tool use for agents. And right now, if you just ask ChatGPT to do XYZ, it can only act on the knowledge it's been trained on. It can't act in the outside world just yet. There's a few really good repositories people are using, Composio and N8N, to basically enable agents to have access to your Google Drive, your Notion, your calendar, and basically even use those apps for you and to interact with that. And we're end of July, we'll be releasing basically our true agentic sort of agents. And so I'm really excited for that.
Awesome. And for Nick, how do you see Assisterr evolving over time? I think the current go-to-market strategy is right now B2B2C. Do you guys see yourself being positioned as truly B2C?
Yeah, we start with B2B2C offering because right now our clients are basically big protocols like Solana or Optimism and other guys. But really end user is developer who trying to build something on top of these different protocols. And that already works, but what we are doing, we are packaging this use case as a one simple application. And then we are saying like, hey, here is an example. We did this application, we get 100K ARR over the last 2 months, and we expect additional $1 million in revenue over the next half year. So if you own some data and you want to launch your application, your use case by using our infrastructure, by relying on community in a loop, by organizing a data contributors, data validators around your AI-first application, start use, just follow our example. And that is the way where I see the biggest scalability, because by targeting one single use case, we can get to millions in revenue pretty fast, and it's working business by allowing many creative people with different backgrounds, with different exposure into different data sets and expertise to come use and benefit from infrastructure, from communities that we are building around and bringing their own community to our platform. It's something where we see huge scale and huge opportunity for ourselves.
Awesome. And last question for panelists. What is needed for consumer applications in AI and crypto to have longevity and sustainable growth over time?
Real neat. Like to have someone who wants to use it, That's the whole point.
Yeah, I would say the user experience has to be just as good as kind of the centralized AI systems. And right now there's this kind of big race to get to whoever the best model is that beats all these particular benchmarks. And then we get to AGI at some point, and maybe we go to ASI at some point. And so once we get to AGI, maybe the model will start to become a bit more commoditized at that point, and then the user experience issues will be resolved on the Web3 side as well. Because right now, it's a good analogy would be, let's say you use Netflix every day, but instead of like just going for the movies, you actually have to say, okay, which AWS server do I want my Netflix app to be served on? Which encoding algorithm do I use? And then which payment rail should I use for this particular movie? That's kind of what the crypto experience is like in many cases. Now, a lot of that infrastructure can be abstracted away with like really smart agents and doing all of that for you and better models over time. But we've got OpenAI and X having billions of dollars of funding, and that very centralizing force being able to suck up a lot of GPU power to create better and larger models. But then a decentralizing force where we can create better, more well-tuned, smaller type of models that can be strung together through LLM middleware to create very powerful models on the decentralized side, plus all the other benefits we talked about. And eventually, I think they'll just kind of converge once we get to this AGI state. And so, user experience.
Yeah, I strongly agree with Michael. I really do think if everyone has access to this commoditized model, the only differentiating factor is both the UX and the community. I think the community and UX are going to be massive moats in this AI future. The other thing that I'm quite, going back to the core question, I think you just need to build products that users love. That's just the core of that. And I think the one area that I'm actually really excited about with agents, I really hate bridges in crypto. I just absolutely, just the notion of it, even like, imagine going to like Chase Bank and like you're to get another money, you need to like bridge to some other, like, it's just absolutely terrible. Even the security implications, even the just the user experience of like, it's literally like you're going through like immigration and like you're going to another world, the Ethereum world, and there's all these things you have to do. I think very soon, this intent-based architecture that people are building, LLMs will be the abstraction layer on top of these intents that basically enable you to coordinate across chains with just a command instead of go to wormhole, then go to layer 0, then like choose L1 and this, that, like get rid of all that. I don't think a normal consumer user in crypto will ever touch a bridge, and I hope they don't ever touch a bridge. And I think LLMs will be the ultimate abstraction layer to enable seamless utility and execution on top of Web3.
I want to add here, just a couple of years ago at previous bull run, we had this boom with gaming application when any crypto game looked as a trading terminal by the end of the day, you know. It's like, and there was no fun for gamers. And I think with the crypto application right now, especially with this new wave, where we're trying to mix something good from AI and good from Web3 space to make really eligible use cases, we also need to focus on the user experience instead of this like trading, speculation, and other elements of the game. And if we will succeed, I think there would be very interesting use cases pretty soon. There are already, but they need to be more popularized, more bring to the market. And what is very important, it's not probably like some crypto projects are trying to compete directly with the industry leaders. And like if you're trying to compete with OpenAI with ChatGPT implementation, it's quite complicated. There is like a lot of other applications that we can address. And that's what builders who are here at the conference, who are participating in the hackathon, who we are going to call to our ecosystem to launch the models. That's the goal of these people, to find niche, to find the problems that they want to address by leveraging the best from AI and Web3 space.
One thing I want to really quickly add is with one other thing that I really hope, and I'm sure a lot of people are working on this with this LLM-based intent architecture. I really do think the amount of bugs and sort of hacks that happen will go down precipitously, primarily because an agent is always going to be watching when you're clicking stuff, your own personal agent. The moment you're about to click some malicious link, it'll already do simulations for it. It'll already know it's going to be a hack. It won't even let you do it. And it's like going to babysit you. It's going to just make sure that nothing goes wrong and no one's trying to steal your money, and is going to essentially just augment your ability to live in this world of infinite information.
Awesome. We have about 10 seconds left, but given that we have a presentation after this, I wanted to thank the audience for tuning in. Thank the panelists for participating, and looking forward to seeing everybody here in September. Thanks.